pharmacies. And when they arrive, no customs, no immigration, no COVID testing, no quarantine, and many of them not abiding by the health ordinance. I have no problem with my brothers and sisters of Venezuela, but they're coming into our land when our borders are locked. Some are not going back and they're staying. What is going on in the Prime Minister's constituency is a clear and present danger to our national security, as well as a potential major health and safety issue for the society and for every single citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. All of this, my brothers and sisters, while our nationals are left stranded and languishing in foreign lands, some broke and penniless, whilst they're away from their homes, their families, their jobs, and their loved ones, being deprived of their constitutional right to return to their native land that they so desire. The government continues to leave our borders open to these illegal immigrants, yet they have closed it to our own citizens. Citizens that have contributed to the development of the country, paid their taxes, built their lives and livelihoods here. These citizens have no rights in foreign lands. They cannot work. They have no food, no accommodation. Brothers and sisters, the government has left our citizens stateless, poor and penniless. I ask you again, does this sound like a democracy? Or is our country now moving towards a dictatorship? This is a shameless travesty. I call upon the PNM government to restore the constitutional rights of our citizens and return them to this country. Return them all, not some. Return them now. They do not have the luxury of time. And let me tell you, you can't come and blame Kamala Persad-Bissessar for this one, you know. If our honorable leader Kamala Persad-Bissessar was the Prime Minister today, she would have had compassion for our citizens. She would have done everything in our power to alleviate their suffering. And she would have demanded the results in locking down our borders. Brothers and sisters, this is across every aspect of this country. When we turn to the business side of things, and I look at the business sector, if Kamala Persad-Bissessar was in power today, she would have instilled the confidence in businessmen like myself. Because today, we see the complete collapse and decimation of the small and micro business enterprise in this country. We see even the medium-sized businesses brought to their knees, while a few big business friends and financiers gobble up the spoils of every failed business. We've seen business taxes skyrocketing. We've seen the absence of the availability of foreign exchange. And we see this government not paying the VAT refunds in a timely manner. Can you imagine the Minister of Trade comes to the Parliament to say that one of the PNM strategies to support manufacturers and businesses during the COVID crisis was to clear VAT returns in a substantial way? I don't know whether to laugh, get angry, get sad. How on earth is this a strategy? This is not the government's money. This money belongs to the manufacturers and the businesses across the length and breadth of our sweet TNT. And it must be paid immediately in order to save many businesses that are now on the verge of bankruptcy. Under this PNM government, we see foreigners are bypassing us as an investment destination. Foreign direct investment has been in a negative zone since 2016, after we left office. Our latest data shows that in 2018, foreign direct investment was a negative $701.9 million US dollars, showing that foreign investors have deserted us. But guess what? At least our brothers in Jamaica have taken in more than $700 million. So they're inviting people in, we're running them out. But brothers and sisters, the number one red flag for me in listening to the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, the chambers of commerce throughout the country, and the general business community, including that very well-reputed panel that spoke on the spotlight of the economy on the 28th of September, is the ease of doing business. This is the fundamental issue that is facing the private sector, causing the economy to have declined by 16% from 2015 to 2020 under this PNM. The Minister of Finance said all ministries have to get involved in solving this problem. The question is, why have you failed as a government over the past 5 years, moving us from 63 in the world to now 105? This government has to stop paying lip service to the process and start putting their shoulders to the wheel. You know, this was indeed the position of the Minister of Finance. He said that every single minister has to get involved. He divorced himself from responsibility. In essence, though, at least the Minister of Finance was honest. The Minister of Finance has said, by his admittance, he has said, by indicating the fall of many ministries in the ease of doing business, he's basically conceded that his cabinet has failed. That's the only way I can read it. There has to be a difference between the previous administration and this one, because under the astute leadership of the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar as Prime Minister, we were ranked 63 in the world. We were receiving accolades from the European Union. There must have been something horribly wrong that happened to decline us to 105 since Kamala Persad-Bissessar. What happened, my brothers and sisters, was the mistake and the pandemic of the PNM. Facts are that under this PNM administration, ease of doing business has shamefully plummeted. If you want to do construction, it decreased from 77 to 125. So if you want to improve your manufacturing plant or your factory floor, you now have double the challenge in getting construction permits. Just getting electricity went from 10 to 41, 4 times harder. Getting credit in this country went from 20 to 60. So even if you want to manufacture or you want to invest, you can't get the liquidity. After all, they keep in your VAT money. But here's the one. They did fix one. Resolving insolvency went from 114 up from 77. They had to improve that because so many people are going out of business that one had to be fixed. The banks did what they had to do to get their money back from those people who have gone out of business. We are seeing it now. One only has to walk through any mall through the length and breadth of this country. Take a drive along any commercial center. We see stores closed, businesses shut, unemployment rising by the day, and banks foreclosing on your assets. The PNM has failed every single business here today. Now, if I had more time, I would have said a lot more about the manufacturing sector. But I have to make way for my political leader. So in closing, elections have a consequence. And if Kamala Persad-Bissessar was your Prime Minister today, she would have demanded results from her cabinet and helped to solve many of the problems I have discussed. She is a leader with compassion and a leader with a vision. And I continue to support her wholeheartedly as a leader of our great party. My colleague in the Senate once said that the only thing standing in the way of a PNM dictatorship and Trinidad and Tobago maintaining a democracy is this United National Congress led by our honorable leader, Mrs. Kamala Persad-Bissessar. We will continue to be the checks and balances of this PNM government. We will continue to expose their lies. It is a difficult task and a hard road we trod on because, my brothers and sisters, in the words of Mark Twain, it is easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled. The PNM has fooled this nation, but a Kamala Prasad-Bissessa-led UNC will expose this treachery every day, every month, and every year until we are led unanimously back into power by our leader and our beloved leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessa. And I thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, my colleagues here, those who have spoken. Thank you all very much. Chairman Kose, Senator Damian, and former Senator Sean Sobers, Manifa, thank you very much. Friends who are here and friends and family of the UNC at home. Good night again. Welcome to another virtual report from the United National Congress. We are very happy to join you on your devices, in your living room, and of course, wherever you may be locked in and tuned in to this virtual meeting. My colleagues have spoken on some matters. I will share some with other matters, with you, other issues. I see that the party that is seeking to attack us is a party that had secret meetings with Delcy Rodriguez. This is a party whose leader stood up in Parliament and said he had no issue about meeting with narco-traffickers. This is a party who the day after he was elected actually went on TV to say that the rich will get richer. He didn't believe in equity, rich to get richer. This is the same party that presided over $100 million in fake oil. This is a party that up to today cannot explain where $97 million money allocated to salary relief grant, where has it gone, $97 million? But they continue to carry on, and today from several questions asked in the Parliament, we are seeing a pattern of expenditure during the COVID crisis, which as we put all the information together, we will share with you. But it is pointing to where there was clearly discrimination against UNC constituencies, persons residing in UNC constituencies, and in seats where they thought that they had to pump as much money as they could, whether it was for housing, whether it was for their grants, and all the plethora of matters that they gave out money for during that period in election. Do you know something we found out today? That whilst they gave out all these support, food cards and so on, prior to the election, they have now stopped it. They have stopped giving the food cards. And this is at the time when you have far more people on the bread line, no food on their table, off the bread line. They stopped it. Question asked, and they told us, oh, we gave out so much, we gave it out before elections. But since then, they stopped it. So we will expose them. You're right, that's our job. That is the job of the loyal opposition of Trinidad and Tobago. We will continue to expose them in the Parliament and outside the Parliament. And of course, they're still clueless on COVID. I think we have to remind ourselves repeatedly that COVID didn't crush the economy. It was a PNM who crushed our economy, and they continue so to do. So they thought they were giving us a blie on Saturday in the press conference. The Prime Minister has his usual Saturday press conferences. And last week we were told cinemas could open but no food. And we were told then that by selling the food, this is how the cinemas make the most money. They say restaurants can open only for limited amounts. So there's a kind of confused thinking. There is no clear, rational policy for dealing with COVID. Damien has very strongly and passionately talked about no help still for stranded nationals. What a shameful thing for Trinidad and Tobago when others have brought their nationals back home. Trinidad and Tobago, they promise they will do it, and these are the promises that never materialize. Now, we have been warned in the country for some time now that they were taking us down a dark and dangerous road. The full extent of how they lied to the people of Trinidad and Tobago is now becoming clearer and clearer with each passing day. They lied and said the economy had turned around. They lied and said the treasury was empty, but yet they had billions for things like castles and paintings and rentals and Roman bills and so on. They lied and said they didn't know their best friend was selling fake oil. They lied and said the laptop program was bad. Children didn't need it, so what did they do? They scrapped it. They lied and said gas prices they had negotiated didn't cause Point Lisa's to collapse when several plants have been shut down. They lied and said they were doing enough COVID testing, even though we are amongst the lowest test figures in the whole Caribbean. They lied and said Delcy just came to have a chat, and it had nothing to do with secret gas deals to Venezuela. They lied and said COVID is to blame for this poor state of the economy. They lied and said they were not closing down Petrotrin. We must remember that. We must remember that. And even of all these lies, the government, PNM government, saved the biggest lie for after election. And that is what I want to talk a little about tonight. The biggest lie was that they were going to sell Petrotrin to the OWTU, their company, Patriotic Energies Company Limited. That is the biggest lie, biggest hoax that they have perpetrated on the people of Trinidad and Tobago and on the workers of OWTU. And I'll show you why tonight. I have received several documents in my mailbox, which I will share with you. One of them is a document dated October 29, 2020. It is addressed, it comes from Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited. It is addressed to the Honorable Stuart Young, Minister of Everything. It is addressed to Senator Honorable Franklin Khan. It is addressed to the Permanent Secretary Chairman of the Evaluation Committee. It is addressed to Mr. Newman K. George, Chairman of Paria Fuel Trading Limited and Guaracara Refining Company Limited. And of course, Mr. George is also the husband of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. And the topic is Heads of Agreement for the acquisition of the refining and logistics assets of Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited by Patriotic Energies and Technologies Company Limited. I have this document, a very important document. This is the last document sent in on the 29th October by the OWTU through their company. They say, we thank you for your time during our meeting held October 21. As discussed, we have prepared the enclosed heads of agreement to provide a framework for closing on the acquisition of the refinery and the terminal assets. Listen to this. Heads of agreements for the sale of what? The refinery. This is the first time we have confirmation that they're also seeking to buy the terminal assets. Terminal assets, which is Paria, that's the, when you buy the fuel and sell the fuel and so on. First time. This is a proposed transaction, and here are the heads of agreement. So what I've been able to glean from this, I will share with you tonight. A lot of things. I can talk about 5 different issues rather than going through the entire document. There are 5 issues in it. 1, we warned the government not to shut down the refinery because of the job losses directly and indirectly. So 5 issues now. sale of Guaracara Refinery and Paria Fuel Trading Company. That refinery, an issue was there before about the sale. When Guaracara Petrotron shut down, the assets from the refinery were placed in Guaracara. Terminal assets were placed in Paria Fuel Trading. So what this is now revealing to us is that the proposal was not just to sell the refinery, but also to sell, as I said before, the terminal in the Paria Trading. So what does that consist of? That includes the tank farms, the harbors, the docks, the berths, piping, pipelines, and all machinery and equipment, buildings, roads, and drains, and relevant real estate. This is a sizable asset of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The government indicated the refinery was up for sale, but made no mention that Paria was also up for sale. The Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy on several occasions denied that Paria was for sale. So here we are now, another lie being exposed. On the 16th of March 2019, we heard that Paria was up for sale by none other than Wilfred Espino. You remember him? Remember Wilfred Espino? Even further, an RFP for the sale of Paria was placed in a newspaper. And that was after the RFP for the refinery was sent out. On 18 March 2019, 2 days later, Minister Khan denied it and said, and I quote from Minister Khan, reported in the Express, as Minister of Energy and Energy Industries, I wish to make it clear that the divestment of Paria Fuel Trading Company is not within the current mandate, given by the government to Trinidad Petroleum Holdings Limited. So he denied it. Even when Espino said it was going to happen, even when Espino, they put it out, an RFP in the newspaper, Minister Khan came and said, no, not happening. This was reported in looptt.com. Government orders retraction on the RFP for Paria Fuel Trading. As Minister Khan said, the RFP was inadvertently issued for the sale of Paria, and then directed the retraction and withdrawal notice. So here it is. They denied it. Not only the minister. On March 21, the Prime Minister stated there is no position taken by the government to sell Paria. Again, reported in looptt.com. So at the highest levels, they continue to fool the population. And I don't know if you're also fooling the OWTU, but you're not selling Paria. The Minister of Finance in a statement issued on 20th September 2019, a few weeks before that budget and the local government elections, he then stated that as a part of the original RFP for sale of refinery, they were including the assets of Paria. This is after Minister of Energy and Prime Minister denied that they were going to sell Paria. So the second issue I want to raise has to do with the price of the refinery. What is noteworthy in the statement is that Patriotic offered, you remember, $700 million US for the refinery assets and $300 million for the non-core assets. There was no price in their bid for the Paria assets. I now have a document in my possession, as I said, on the Patriotic Energy's letterhead dated 29 October 2020, and I mentioned to you it was addressed to Stuart Young, addressed to Minister Khan, P.S. Vishnu Danpal, Mr. Newman George. It is now discovered from this document that Patriotic has now offered an upfront payment of $500 million for the assets. So before they had offered the $500 million US, they're now offering, they had offered $700 million, now offering $500 million, $200 million less. I have a copy, as I say, draft heads of agreement for the sale of the refinery and Paria to Patriotic. And what is the bid? $500 million US. Based on documents we found, the same documents we found, they now want to pay US $526 million for the refinery. They will pay $500 million in advance. But listen to this. They want the government to foot the bill for their fees and charges in the sum of 26 million US dollars. So in addition to dropping the price that they had offered, they want the government to pay them $26 million. This is far less from their US $700 million offer. It was also stated in the letter that I mentioned that it will cost $500 million US to restart the refinery. And who is willing to provide the financing to restart the refinery? It is a company known as Trafigura. I will speak of them more. And you have heard Anna Roberts many times speak of them. So Patriotic has relied now on a one-page document produced by Deloitte dated 26 October 2020 to show why they can pay $526 million for the refinery. There was no on-site evaluation conducted. Deloitte based their calculation and information provided by Patriotic. Therefore, in total, they're willing to purchase and restart the refinery for a total of US $1 billion. The government rejected Patriotic's deal when they offered the US $700 million. They now want to pay $200 million less to buy the refinery. And then Para is now included in the sale. What is the value of the Para assets? If it is that you were offering for the refinery that price, how come you've been offering a lower price for both the refinery and for Para? What is the valuation of Para's assets? How much are they willing to pay for these billion-dollar assets? And we are told, I don't know if it's true, it's alleged, that they never really wanted the refinery. What they really wanted was Para. They wanted the port and the docks, the birds, the tank farms. And you can see why they may want it, because remember, fuel off Trinidad ended up in Venezuela, but it was not destined for Venezuela. So let's talk about the financing of this refinery now, for the purchase of the refinery. Where is Patriotic getting the US $1 billion to purchase the refinery? They do not have the money to purchase. People in this country cannot get 500 US when they want to travel or buy something. Where are they going to get the US $1 billion? We have learned that they have approached RBC to finance the purchase of refinery assets in the sum of US $500 million, which they have offered, and US $500 million to restart is to come from Trafigura. So they approach RBC for $500 million US and Trafigura for the other $500 million US. However, I also have, amongst the documents I received, one from RBC Capital Markets, also dated 29 October 2020, where RBC indicated that they are willing to assist, but they have not confirmed that they will in fact provide the financing of $500 million US for the project. They also give you a 9-month timeline to raise this financing to purchase the assets. There's also an MOU signed on the 28th October 2019 with Patriotic and the Trafigura I mentioned before. This MOU was effective for 1 year to the 27th October 2020. They have now extended that MOU on the 22nd October 20 for 15 months. The MOU will expire in January 2021, before RBC would have raised that first $500 million to purchase the assets. The Trafigura money was for the Para. This means the refinery is nowhere close to being restarted. There's another issue coming in out of these documents, and they have to do with tax concessions. And these remind me of a sandal scandal all over again. In that MOU, I'm asking whether Trafigura has indicated that they will require exemptions and concessions from taxes, duties, levies, inclusive of taxes on income from Trinidad and Tobago, another sandals fiasco. So if the government cannot collect taxes from the refinery or Para, what is the benefit to the people of Trinidad and Tobago? According to the financial statement of Para 29 September 2019, Para sales was $7.2 billion in sales and gross profits in the sum of $342 million. That means $100 million in taxes are given to the government. What will happen then is that with the concessions and so on, Trafigura and Patriotic will pay no taxes. When Traffic Bureau wants an exemption from paying all taxes, what will be the benefit to the people of Trinidad and Tobago? Is it true that Traffic Bureau also requires that all its assets of Paria be transferred to them at the close of the agreement to finance the restart of the refinery? All the assets of Paria be transferred to Traffic Bureau. What interest does Traffic Bureau have with Paria? Again, I say it's the port and the tank farms. So that they are so close to Venezuela. Traffic Bureau has indicated that they will provide fuel supply and offtake for the refinery. Why do they want our ports and our tank farms? I ask you to remember what happened just before elections when the shipment of oil that was bound for somewhere else ended up in Venezuela, just offshore of Trinidad waters. Let's get back to Traffic Bureau, a very troubled company. They have been subject to investigations relating to corruption, market manipulation. They've been warned by the U.S. not to do business with sanctioned companies. They have been embroiled in many controversies: oil for food scandal, waste dumping in Cote d'Ivoire, chemical explosion in Norway, price fixing in Malta, trade of toxic diesel to Africa, Brazilian operation car wash. Why would our government be interested in doing business with this company? Is it because of a close tie to Wilma Ruperti, you've heard that name, who is affiliated with Traffic Bureau? Do you remember he was the same person involved in the alleged sale of fuel to Venezuela, which almost got a sanction by the US? Is that why, again, Traffic Bureau wants the assets of Paria? I want to ask the government now, are they prepared to sell the refinery in Paria while the assets of those are currently mortgaged to the Bank of New York Mellon? They have mortgaged the assets of Paria, Guaracara, and Heritage for US $1.173 billion. I also have with me from the company's registry a copy of the statement of charge. So that New York Bank Mellon has a charge against the assets of these companies. Now, what does a charge mean? It's like you have mortgaged the assets to this bank for that $1.1 something billion, $1.173 billion. You've mortgaged it. This is a charge as registered in the company's registry. Do you know if you have mortgaged your property, you cannot sell it? You cannot sell it without the consent of the mortgagee. You cannot sell it. You have to satisfy the debt to the person who is holding the mortgage. Mellon, New York Bank. So how can you offer to sell the assets to OWTU for $500 million US, but the debt on the mortgage is $1.173 billion? How are you going to pay it? It will be the people of Trinidad and Tobago who will have to pay this, clear the mortgage before you could sell it. In other words, you couldn't sell it. So you were fooling the people, deceiving the union, deceiving the people of Trinidad and Tobago. When before the election, who was the preferred bidder? Right up to days before August 10th, they were saying it is patriotic. Days after. And then they came after the election, no. Then they said, okay, they'll revalue it. How are you going to revalue it? Where are you going to get $1.173 billion to clear the mortgage when you're only getting $500 US for the refinery? Where and how are you going to do it? And the story doesn't stop there. It doesn't stop there. In the Sunday Express, there is another charge. Another charge. Okay? There are two bond payments for Petrotrin. One was due in 2019, the other in 2022. However, a new bond was issued which will be due in 2026. So how are you going to pay off that bond and be able to still sell it to OWTU? You will have to clear that bond. According to an article written by Kyron Regis in the Trinidad Guardian yesterday, in the Express, I believe it was. Let me pull it up. Too much paper. Article written, Sunday paper. Here is it. Business. Sunday Business. Guardian. Petrotrin bond prospectus shows government misled patriotic. Administration could not defer payment for refinery. Former minister says Imbert should have known better. Unpatriotic blunder. Unpatriotic blunder. And what this is about is that there is a according to the article, there is a bond prospectus listed on the stock exchange in Luxembourg. It shows that the government is in no position to sell the refinery since the assets are under its charge. The prospectus, which I have a copy of here, dated 13 September 2019, dated September 2019, tells us the government had no legal authority to sell the refinery to anyone. Why? The prospectus lists at page 151 the following. Limitation on asset sales. The issuer will not cause or permit any guarantor to make any asset sale unless the following conditions are met. Now, who is the guarantor? The guarantors are TPHL, Guaracara, and so on. You cannot sell unless these conditions are met. The consideration received for the asset sale is at least equal to the fair market value. We've done no valuations. At least 75% of the consideration received for the asset sale is in the form of cash or cash equivalents, as opposed to capital stock, notes, tangible assets. Therefore, question, what is the fair market value? Was a valuation conducted? And thirdly, who conducted the valuation? When was it done? Is the government in a position to collect 75% of the cash of the sale from the prospective buyer? The documents Patriotic is prepared to offer 500 million, as I told you. But the assets covers only about 50% of the value of the charge on the assets. So how are you going to sell something that's not yours? You took the whole country for a ride with these lies. Just come and vote. Just vote. You'll get that refinery. After you're going to get the refinery. When the government had no legal authority to sell the refinery. And this article writing made it very clear yesterday, calling it unpatriotic blunder. And the government knew or ought to have known that they could not sell the refinery. So we will have not long to wait to see what happens. This is another mama guy now that you extend and you want the evaluation committee to look at again, blah, 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 blah. Fooling people, kicking the can down the road. Just keep kicking the can down the road. That's what they're doing. You promised the workers that they will own the refinery, but it will be with a third-party owner. And this goes further, you know. Not just that you can't sell it, but you're not really selling the refinery to the workers. Remember, I told you, traffickers, one of the conditions was the refinery must be transferred to them. So who owns the refinery? It will not be the workers, it will not be the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Why are we selling Paria to Trafigura? Why? Again, a company with a really, really troubled history, with all kinds of deals that went, and who will hold the beneficial interests in the refinery? Which assets belong to the people of our country? Was Patriotic at any time told of the restrictions on the sale? That is on it, with the charge, the mortgage, and the bond. Are we setting up the workers? Are you, Rowley, setting up the workers of the country? Are you taking the workers and the union for a ride? This deal is a conspiracy with many who are aiding, abetting, counseling, and procuring. Today, I want to call again on the government, do not sell any state assets without implementing fully, proclaiming and implementing the procurement legislation. You want to sell these two assets, you want to sell out all the NB stations, you want to sell out the port, and you have no procurement legislation in place for disposal of property. The existing CTV legislation deals with acquiring goods and services. It is a new procurement legislation we passed in 2015. Which up to 5 years later has not been fully proclaimed, not implemented. I note with great interest that many private sector civil society groups in a joint statement stated they were very disturbed by the lack of progress to implement procurement legislation. The JCC, the TT Chamber of Industry and Commerce, AmCham, TT Transparency Institute, TTMA, Phyton and TT Coalition of Services Industries? Why is the government dragging its feet on the full implementation of the procurement legislation? Why? Why will they not proclaim it? You know why? Because they can have deals that can go down. If you do not have that legislation in place, it will be done through cabinet directive. The legislature was put into place to handle things like these, disposal of public property, the property of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. So I want to ask the government and the Prime Minister a $1 billion question. Is it true that you already have a buyer lined up for the refinery within 3 months with the finances to purchase and restart the refinery? Is that why you're just kicking the can down the road with Patriotic? Because you can't sell it to them and they do not have the money for the financing or for the restarting of the refinery, given all the restrictions and conditions. If you do, if you know how you can get it to them, please tell the country. Please tell the country how it's going to happen. How are you going to pay the $1.173 billion in charges, in mortgages, bonds, and so on that you owe, where you have the assets as being guaranteed for those loans that you took. So these are very, very important questions. And as I close on that issue, I am very disturbed, and I want to ask, and I think the people of the country should be exceedingly disturbed, not just about this deal, but also about the fact that the IMF had told us that there was something going wrong with our banks. But the banks did not have the level of risk that they should have. If that is the case, I call on the government to tell us. And if you don't tell us, I will reveal the report that I have, a recent report. Now, I don't want to do this because this will cause a run on our banks. And that's the last thing we want now. So tell us, are the monies in our banks, do the customers, the clients, are they at risk? Because I'm told if you have, I think it's up to $75,000, you will one $75,000, not several accounts, only one shot that you may be insured for that. So tell us, is there a problem at this time in our country where the monies of the people of Trinidad and Tobago in banks, in some of the banks, that money is at risk? It's a very, very, very serious issue, and I call on the Minister of Finance to tell us whether he has a report, a recent report, on matters related to the risk levels of various banks in our country. As I close tonight, I want to thank you all very much for again being with us, and since I will not see you, or may not see you, tomorrow we have our virtual Diwali program at my constituency office starting at 6. I will ask you to join us on that virtual space. And so UNC family, I want to spend a few minutes to bring you Diwali greetings. I know many of you will be celebrating at home, not in the way that you would normally celebrate your friends and family, but to all of you, we want to say Shubh Diwali. We know that it's a very important time. It has been a very important community time, family time. It has been important for Hindus and non-Hindus, a time when people come together regardless of race or religion. And let's remember, as we light the diyas this week and some on Saturday, remember that these diyas have the potential to brighten even the darkest moments in your life. Let us keep in mind the massive impact that such a small piece of clay filled with oil can make on the world. So too in our lives and our quest to be good citizens and devotees to the Lord. Small acts of kindness can have a long-lasting, massive impact on everyone. So, from my family and from the UNC, I say, may the blessings and protection of Divine Mother Lakshmi bless you, your homes, and your families. Shubh Diwali to all of you. I thank you very much and have a great night.